Three, two, one, boomer rolling. Taylor Spike, I got you, brother. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry, I was playing a mean game of tag there.
No, it's all right, dude. I've gone through some heck of a lot of games of tags trying to get some guests on here, but the good guests are always a little bit of work, so I'd expect this to be nothing but that.
Awesome, good, good.
You don't do a ton of podcasts, do you?
No, I've been kind of I don't want to say picky. It's just like you know platforms I want to be part of, and some that I shouldn't even say that. That's like way overthinking it. No, I haven't done many. No.
Well, I appreciate you accepting my offer, man. This is a big deal for me, so thank you.
Okay, yeah, no, absolutely, man.
I want to just jump right into it, man. I've noticed, and I want to challenge you to keep doing these videos that you keep posting on the internet, on Instagram. I love them, and I feel like they're newer. You've been kind of doing them over the past month or two, and the messages that you're spreading are amazing. Where did this come about?
A buddy telling me, actually, he's not even he is a buddy. He's like a social media buddy, I guess. This local, he's pretty local to me. I've never met him, but he and I go back and forth on Instagram, and he's like, "Hey, we need more T Spike personality." And I was like, "I did a video," and he's like, "That's what I'm talking about." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool, whatever." So I just kept, as I could totally overdo it, and I've had to kind of reel back, and I can see where people get sucked into that stuff because, some of those messages, it's like my dog's. Can you hear my dog? I
You're
did.
fine. You're
Yeah.
fine, dude. I've interviewed guys in hotel lobbies. It's all good,
Okay.
I promise.
Yeah, that's funny. Um, yeah, and I just, I've gotten a lot of. One thing I noticed is there's a lot of positive feedback to each other in the comments. Not even to me per se. It's like it kind of goes back and forth, and that is like that was really cool, and I really like to see that. So I try really hard at whatever I say to create a conversation within the comments. That has been really fun to see. I think people are great. And so I just keep, something comes to mind, I just kind of toss it out there
Yeah,
on a
no,
whim. I could probably rehearse it. Someone else said I needed to get like a mic or something. I'm like, well, whatever, man. It's like, I enjoy it. People seem to like it, and I just have rolled with it.
no, they're great too, because probably at least half of them come when you're putting down miles, and I'm probably like you, like my mind really gets going and starts spinning. I get something in my mind, and I'll probably forget it like an hour after I'm done. But if I just throw my phone in front of my face while I'm getting down miles, it's just so raw and authentic, and I think that's why it resonates with people.
Yeah. Yep.
I got a couple things, man. A couple of these messages, and I want to get into your background a little bit, if you don't mind, here
Sure.
shortly. But one message that you had that I wrote down is that when you see someone who has a problem, you should tell them and call them out. Where did that come from? Because I love that. I really do, because people need to hear that. You don't need to tell everybody what they want to hear most of the times. You need to tell them what they need to hear. So I really enjoyed that message.
Yeah, that's a very specific one too. My mom listens to these, so this is gonna be a hard one. Um, my parents were living; they had retired, and they were living in their travel trailer and just being retired. They'd worked hard their whole lives. My dad was a roller operator. My mom had multiple jobs. It was like they worked hard. So now they're retired. They're kind of living the dream. And I was over there visiting my mom, and I was wasted, and I was drunk, just really drunk. And I remember her saying, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just really tired." And that really stuck with me because I don't know if I would have. I don't really know how I responded, but what I really, really needed in that moment was for her to say, "What are you doing? Why? What? Let's get you help." I needed someone to say, "Hey, hey, hey," because that's like I tell people, it's like your family really wants you happy, and they're going to do whatever they can to make sure you're happy. But sometimes that's you destroying yourself or being out of control because they think that's is you know what I mean. I guess I could
Yeah, I know
go
exactly
down a
what you
rabbit
mean.
hole, but that's what I think happens. It's like we know, and just like parents with their kids, you know when they're doing something, and when the more you skirt around it, the worse it gets, and then eventually it doesn't even really exist. And how do you address something you've turned your back to for so long? I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
As
yeah, my mom never did, and I don't know that I've ever actually said that out loud, but that was one of the moments that it was that, and then another one was being sold alcohol at the store that they would sell it they already knew I'd been drinking, right, and I was gonna grab it like a road soda, it was like I don't know. Those are the guys buying the 24-ounce grande. It's like he ain't wait until he gets home. His vehicle is his living room, and we all let that happen. We see it, the person in line behind them, the person selling it to him, people are shaking their head. It's like, come on, people,
Right.
it's not okay. It's not okay. So
Yeah. Was there a coming to Jesus moment when you made the decision to get sober and kind of turn your life around? And I hope you don't mind me talking about this, but you know that when I messaged you, I was like, man, I think we could really help some people because I do know a little bit of your background, and I just think it's a very important message because I know a lot of people that have struggled with addiction in the past. A lot of these listeners that listen to my show are on the right path now. And if you're okay with that, I wouldn't mind
yeah,
just dabbling into it just a touch.
yeah. No, it's all that's good. No, I agree. Helping somebody, and yeah, it's amazing. I think a lot of us struggle with the same things, and for me, it was I'd finished SOB Siskiyou out and back 50 miler. I'd finished like an hour faster than my family thought I was going to. I had just this incredible day on the mountain, and I was back at camp drinking some Sierra Nevadas, and I'm 4 deep into a six pack. And I remember our oldest son Donovan was sitting across the table from me with his arms crossed, and he's just shaking his head. And I'm like, I'm a drunk piece of shit. And I remember drinking the rest of that beer, and it was like that was when I was like, okay, so maybe I do have a problem, and I need to figure out how to fix it because I got these boys looking at me, and I think here I am better in myself and running, and I've gotten in shape, but I'm still drunk. I mean, I'm still doing the reckless stuff. I just have accepted this way of you know I guess what I felt like is people around me were accepting it and it was okay because you're drinking, you're running, you're having a good time. But I realized that I was too far gone on it, and my kids were recognizing it. It was July of I don't know what year it was. I'd have to look, but yeah, I remember that specifically where we were camped and everything, and that just burned in my head that moment.
Yeah, I can see how I don't have kids yet, but I can see how that'd be kind of that moment where you feel like you're letting them down and you know that you're better than that and you're setting an example that you necessarily don't want to set. And he didn't even have to say anything, did he? He just
No,
kind of, yeah.
yeah, and if if you raise your kids right and you have a good family, I think your kids are going to call you out. And they're going to be blunt. Man, they are just brutally honest, and all you need to do is look. There was later moments that my other sons have said things that maybe not were not related to drinking, perhaps, but they were really direct and really brutal. And as a parent, it's like when that happened, it was like this. I can fix this. It's not like it's not like I have this personality flaw that I'll never be able to address. It's like I'm just drunk. I'm just drinking. That is the issue, right? Is that? And so once I could wrap my mind around that, that started to change. That was kind of what got the ball rolling. I didn't realize how much alcohol had affected my life. And people always say that you don't think it's controlling you, but you start looking at where you spent money and decisions you made, or things you said, or the way you showed up to work, or whatever it is. That alcohol is going to affect all of those things in some way. Maybe it's not in your fridge. I never had alcohol in the fridge, rarely.
Yeah.
I mean, but I was drunk when I got home, and I was
Yeah.
drunk when I went to bed. So uh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That reminds me of another recent post that you had about you were calling the men out when, you go through a Saturday night or whatever and you wake up the next day and your wife's pissed at you and you called them out and you said that's because you were drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said something stupid. You looked at someone stupid. You did something, right? My buddy Jared, he's like, I don't know. I still wake up and she's mad at me. And that's true, but you can probably wrap your mind around what you did now and you can talk about it, right? Yeah, when you're drinking, it's a different game. I think everybody skirts around it. You don't realize how much it affects people around you until you really step back and you remove yourself and watch other people do it. Um, Later, that's a hard one. And that goes back to somebody calling you out and saying something, is that other
Yeah.
people are recognizing it happen. And you're just like, it's just a beer. It's not a big deal. All of a sudden, you're a little bit louder. Maybe you're a little obnoxious. It happens so fast to people,
Yeah.
and they think they're loosening up. And, there may be people around you saying that you're getting annoying, and I don't want to be around you. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
And it happens to everybody. Hell, I've been
Oh,
there, and we hardly, like my wife and I, we hardly get out and go have a few beers. But I'm not a professional drinker by any means, so like I say some dumb shit, and the next day, because I mean I can definitely drink more than she can, and the next day she'll be holding some type of grudge, and I'll be like, "What was that?" And she's like, "You said this to that person last night," and I'm like, "I did." She's like, "Yeah, you were being a real dick," and I was like, "I didn't mean to be." But that's just part of the game you play when you decide to make those types of decisions.
yeah, and another thing with that now is that if I do that now, I can call the person, say, "Hey, whoa, I do whatever I did," and um, there's no out. I mean, I have to take ownership of the and responsibility for it, and say, "Hey, man, I didn't mean to do that." But if you're drunk, what are you going to call them and say, "Hey, man, I'm sorry, I got a problem. I drank too much and slipped up." Or hey, I don't, you know what I mean? I'm not
Yeah,
saying that that's what you would do, but that in my mind, it's a different conversation, and to the other friend, it's not nearly as valuable. That's where I think it counts.
yeah, I think you're
But
right.
man, there's
Because
people though. We go out and have burgers. So I initially was doing, I did a lot of root beer. So I could go to a bar and all these local pubs and they have microbrews and root beers that they make themselves, and they're really good. And so we would go around, when we'd go out with friends, I just have root beers. And then me and my sons would go out and have fast food Fridays and eat cheeseburgers and have root beers, and trying to, you know, skirt around it, to create a new habit out of it. And I'll tell you, that was a good mechanism.
yeah, no worries at all. We're still rolling.
Oh, it's counting down. There you go. Yeah, and being able to do that with friends and going out and having something, otherwise, later I realized that they weren't friends and we no longer hang out, right? But during the time when I was trying to accept the fact that I had a problem and I knew I was sober and I didn't want to drink, we went out. Yeah, root beer, fast food Fridays with the boys.
Yeah, no, I agree. You still there? Can you hear me?
Yep, I gotcha.
Okay,
It
perfect.
just glitched a little weird. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine, brother. 12:20. The cool thing is that we can say whatever, and I can edit it out, and then
Oh,
just go
yeah.
back, and we're good. So if we get cut out, don't sweat it.
Okay.
Um, but going off that, when you decide to try to make a change, get your life together, those friends that you might have had, I do this, friends,
Yeah.
um, those definitely change, and it's not anything personal with those people, but you're going on your own path, they're on their own path, and it doesn't mean that either person is on the right or wrong path. You're just taking a different path. So
Yeah.
sometimes that can be a little bit difficult for those old friends to realize that, but that's just part of trying to better yourself and trying to improve is just moving on. And I've done that with multiple people in my life, and it just happens. People grow and evolve and go their separate ways at times.
It's no different than having kids. We had kids really early, and when our other friends didn't, all of a sudden it's not as cool to hang out, with your buddies and your kids there, and that creates, for people, yeah, and I think um, that's where I think. So when you start thinking about quitting, that was one of the things I got stuck on at one point, and I get messages from people. It's like, how do you actually just stop, right? Because there's all these social pieces to it as well. It's not just drinking. There's things that add into that. So being able to, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Um, I'm trying to lost for words a little bit on this. As far as like identifying, yeah, I don't know. I lost my train of thought now. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. We'll move on.
Yeah, I just don't want to sound like an idiot. So
You're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
probably overthinking it.
I'll handle that for the both of us. Don't sweat it.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, Obviously running has been a huge outlet for you, but one thing that stood out to me that you were talking about the other day is there's a fear of all the free time that you have while living a sober lifestyle. Can you touch on that?
Yeah. So that's, oh gosh, yeah, that is a tough one. I guess I'll talk to that in the way that I replaced my alcohol and my pills with running, right? So I had this. This was really early on. I really dove into running, and it was the first few years of it, and I had replaced all my addictions with this running, and the drinking had backed off because I couldn't drink while I was running. I would absolutely drink when I was done, but say Saturday morning when I used to sit around and do yard work and cracking beers at 9 o'clock. Now I'm like driving to the trailhead and I'm going to go for a run, and maybe like 2 or 3 in the afternoon when I started to drink, right? But I was still doing. But I realized it started to like affect it. And the free time piece. Once I had replaced this drinking with this running, um, I got hurt. So when I got hurt running, so I'd replaced this habit, and I always laugh and I say, "This is not the amount of running that I do is not okay." I mean, it's like if you were to remove it and make it any other habit, people would be like, "Dude, you spend 20 hours a week doing this? I mean, you need to collect yourself." So doing that, all of a sudden, I get hurt and I can't run at all. I mean, I go from running 100 miles a week to now I'm like in the hospital having a back surgery. In that talking about replace free time, that's the first go of that was when the pills like really started to get out of control. I'd like the Vicodin and the small stuff wasn't a big deal, but all of a sudden, and I always complained about headaches. All these things related to drinking, right, is what it really was. And I liked opiates, but I had never like really felt like I had abused them until I went through my first back surgery. And then it was drinking and it was pills, and I was freaking just that got me back to running, right? I guess the opiate piece of that's what its job is. But then I had this new addiction, and it was running and pills. It was like together, one and one, right? So that's when I was I was really hard. As it's like your family sees you make this change, you start running, but you're still doing all this shit. I mean, you're still making these bad decisions, but it's like socially acceptable because you're running and you look and you feel better. But I still had this problem, and that's where the pill piece. The drinking was to one thing, but the pills and being told by your doctor, here's how often you can take them, and they just keep refilling that script, and then all of a sudden one day you're like, I'm out of pills. That's it started that. I all the way down that path, and the whole time is when I got hurt and I couldn't run, I needed to do something. So I started to walk. I started to ride the bike. I started to do all these things that just got me out of the house, or in the yard working, or just something. And then I was a wreck. And I really was looking back on it, and it's really funny to me how people from the outside thought that like when I'd lost this weight, I'd clean myself up. I looked completely different. I lost 60 pounds. Boom. It's like I had people at work saying, "Man, are you sick? Something wrong with you?" So it was like all of a sudden looked like I was feeling good, but I was still just this wreck inside, right? And going through that, it was probably in the last 5 years that I've really accepted the fact, it's like been running like this for 15. I guess maybe in like the last 4 or 5 years, I've really started to accept the fact that I need to go do something when I have that urge.
Yeah.
And I have to be like reading. I could be even watching a podcast, or going for a run or doing push-ups is I need that. Otherwise I get anxiety. I mean, there's still like, I don't want to say like physical things, but it's probably like the dopamine hit that my body's still looking for, and I can't get it. But I gotta stay active. I mean, I can't sitting still is hard for me. I mean, I gotta jump right into something. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, yep. Finding the time. Now I get up in the morning and run because I can just clear my thoughts, like we were talking about. But in the evening, it's like it's 4 o'clock. It's the end of the day. It's like I got a couple hours before I need to go to bed. I've already, read what I wanted to in the morning. I've already worked all day. It's like there isn't really anything I don't do much, really. I don't go through social media. I'm not a scroller by any means. I'll look at YouTube for something, and it's like, okay, I can just go for a run, and it might be 2 miles, 3 miles, 5. It's just whatever I kind of feel like. Some days it's absolutely miserable, and other days it's like a mile from the house. I'm like, I'm feeling pretty good. It's like
Yeah.
last night. Yesterday was my second run of the day. So I ran in the morning, had a great workout early, had worked all day.
I lost you, Taylor. Taylor, I lost you. There you go.
I stopped that.
What was that?
Someone called.
Oh yeah. No, it's fine. I just didn't get the last thing you said. You you worked all day, and then yesterday your second run of the day started feeling better.
Oh yeah, so I went out and a couple miles from the house was feeling better and better, and then yeah, I ended up running a personal best in the mile, which is like this is not a huge deal, but it's a pretty big deal for me because it's not like I've been running my whole life and I'm getting older. So to be able to run a mile fast now, I was stoked. So I was really excited about that. And, had I sat at home and done nothing, I probably would have had a horrible evening. I would have been kicking myself the whole time. I should have done this. I should have done it. And, that's what it's turned into now is like, I got to do it. But I also can put it away. I can put it away now and I can replace it. We're going to be skiing pretty soon and I'll be running very little. I'm A-okay with that. Hunting was the same way. I didn't run nearly as much. I was hunting quite a bit. I've learned balance there, but in the beginning it was all running.
Yeah. And you put down like a 5:45 mile yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw 5:45, but Strava said 5:48. So I'll say it was 5:48. But yeah, I was super pumped. I've never done that. So a couple weeks ago, I ran just under 6, and so I've been trying to work harder on like just leg speed and whatnot, and collecting myself when I'm running that hard. And yeah, I was super pumped last night.
Are you running in the Speedlands?
No, I wasn't last night. I was wearing my Temp, my trail shoes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, my Speedlands. That's kind of a race thing for me, honestly.
Yeah.
If I was going to go race a 50K or, I wore them at Canyons, 100 miler. I wore them the whole time. In that setting, I think they're great. I mix my shoes around up quite a bit on the around here, so it's like I don't really just have one shoe.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
but
I know you'll probably never admit it, man, but like not very many ultra runners do, but like in my mind and in my eyes, you are an elite freaking ultra runner, man. Like you've put down at some incredible races, and it's just very impressive. What does like a typical week of training look like for you? Because I see you, you're being more active on the internet and stuff. I see you every morning out running with your headlamp,
yeah.
getting your burpees in and all that. But what does like a typical week of running look like?
Um, 5 in the morning and 5 in the evening. So that's you between 4 and 5, or if we got a meeting or there's something that happens that takes me away from that, then I'll usually around 9 or 10 I'll get in. It's like 45 minutes. I can be done with that. So that right now this time of year, I get up and make some coffee and drink a couple of cups and throw my headlamp on and head out the door and I go for a run, and then about a mile from the finish, I do pull-ups. So I run 4 miles, then do my pull-up routine, and then run home. And man, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you ever done pull-ups and tried to run, but that
Oh yeah,
combo is incredibly difficult. What
yeah,
it is, but it's like your back, everything is just so ticked. And so yeah, and then in the evening, usually, so that's like in the mornings, I just kind of mustered out the miles. I'll say it's usually not too inspiring or anything to write about. But in the evenings, I try to do a workout. And like a workout might be I'm going to run an 11-minute mile the entire time. Or maybe it's I'm going to run a 7-minute mile. Or last night it was I'm going to run a mile, see how I feel, and then pick it up. So it was like a 7-minute mile. Then I think an 8-minute mile. Then I did my 5:48, and then home. at like a 9 minute mile. So it's like I try to have intention on the second run of the day. The first one's just it's like a maintenance run, get my miles in, and they're kind of quick. It used to be like 2 and 3 miles I would do. Doing 5 and 5 this year's new. I haven't ever done that, but I've been doing that for weeks and weeks now.
Yeah, that's the thing too. You got to mix it up, man, because running can be so monotonous at times, and you just, yeah, like, you're doing 5 and 5, and the morning miles. I feel that. I was up before the sun today, and I was like, at least I'm getting them in. Like, I didn't even look at my watch once. I was like, there's people sleeping out here. I'm out here, and it's cold and it's windy. I don't care what the time is. I don't. I think I only ran like 4 miles, but hey,
Yeah,
if I get a bug up my butt later, I'll get another four, and that's an 8 mile day. Like, that's not too bad. But I call them bonus miles when you're up before the sun and you're getting active and you're getting after it when most people aren't. Those are
yeah,
important ones.
yeah, yeah. Just yeah. It's and what's hard is that, especially around your house. Like me, I do the same route. I mean, it's the same route every time, and my part of that's good because it's like I know how to get it over with. And I know it's only gonna. I can do it in 50 minutes. I can do it in 35 minutes. It's I can kind of wrap my mind around it. And I used to go for like a 10 or 8 mile run, but that's a lot of time to bite off at once. And I didn't feel like I could ever do that twice a day. So keeping it under an hour a couple times a day, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
So,
Hell, man, I
but
used to.
summer, that's different. That's like, those are 80, 100 mile weeks. Those are much bigger with a lot more climbing. But right now it's about staying in shape.
Yeah, hell, dude, I used to run 7 miles a day for like 3 straight years. And thinking back at it, I I mean, they're not like huge mileage weeks. You're looking at like 49, 50 mile weeks, which isn't anything crazy, but it's just the consistency and the monotony of it. And I haven't done that like all year because I paid for that bad. Like this year, I've had a ton of injuries that I've been milking, and now it's like
Yeah.
it's not everything to me. The running is what I'm talking about. The running isn't everything, but it's a piece of my fitness. So
Yep.
I sprinkle it in throughout the week. If I'm feeling good, I might go for a longer run. But like today, 4 miles, I'm good, whatever. Um, and I want to say this too because you kind of touched on it earlier, and I think Cam said this a couple years back on one of his lunch runs or something. Um, isn't it funny how one day you can lace them up, you can get out the door, and you just like everything's butter, like you're just feeling like perfect, no pain, legs are turning over great, like you're not your heart rate's low, and then you might do the same thing the next day or 2 days from then, and it's just like, dude, you can barely run a freaking mile. But there's no rhyme or reason. Like you're not necessarily overtrained. It's just so strange how that works to me.
Yeah, doing 5 and 5. So I do it every day. So it's Monday through Sunday. It's like the whole. So it's really interesting because there are times it's the same loop. It's
Yep.
5.4 unless I go do my pull ups and I can make it 6. Right. So that's in the evening usually. Or in the mornings I'll do that, but not the evening. So I can head out and the same route. One day I'll do a 9 minute mile at like 165 beats a minute. Like my heart rate's just pounding, and then the next day it'll be like at 135. And I used to think, well, maybe it's wrong, like because sometimes you don't feel like you're working that hard. The other day I go for a run, it's like 170, and I'm doing a 10 minute mile, and I'm like something's off. I felt like it was really hard. And I'm like, this isn't good. You're a couple miles from the house, thinking, geez, I can usually I feel fine after, and it really, and I don't know what it is. Stress is a big one for me. Stress and anxiety sucks it out of me. Like doing this, just having this interaction. I mean, I won't be wrecked for the rest of the day, but
I'm
I really
sorry.
won't be very
I'm
motivated. So,
sorry.
no, you're good. You're good. It's just that's just part of it. And I used to probably memory wipe that at the end of the day, but that's just something I've learned as I've gotten older and I've been running more and just learned more about my body and how I respond to things. Flying is the same. If I fly somewhere, I literally
Yeah.
I'll get to the hotel and go to bed. I mean, I can't. I'm a wreck after I fly. There's so much anxiety. When I used to drink, I never thought twice about it. I'd get off the plane, go to dinner, go meet with people, do a business dinner. It was no biggie. But now I get off the plane and I'm like, I'm either going for a run, I'm doing 100 burpees, and I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
That's how I roll.
Do you have any tattoos by chance?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's another one for me. You're not doing shit. You're just sitting there for 4 or 5 hours, however long your session is. And dude, after that, I might as well have ran 50 miles. Like I am smoked after
Oh,
getting tattoos.
so that's where I see more and more guys doing that, and I was thinking about what is it about that experience that makes you keep going back. So it's that. So it's just that anxiety and that stress your body's going through while they're digging the ink in.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time since I've gotten a tattoo, but that's I could buy that. That's right. That's a real thing. I'm trying to think how I left when I have a handprint on my back that we got of our son. My wife got one, and then I got one, and that's I remember that one vividly, and I remember after that that was pretty emotional, right? Because it's the
Mm-hmm.
reasons you get the tattoo, and then just the pain of it, having to mentally, battle through that. There's a lot that goes
Mm-hmm.
into that. So I didn't
Yeah.
think of that. That's a good one.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like
that
that. I
that's one
should
of
get
my
it. I should go get a tattoo.
You should. You should. I get this question a lot, man, and I try to ask all the elite ultra guys that I interview over the years. Everybody wants to know about recovery. And up until this year, I have really not been the guy to give any advice on that, but I've really gotten into like mobility and I try to stretch out every day for at least 20 minutes. That's been huge for me, especially for my knees, lower back, and hammies and things like that. But I mean, you're getting 10 plus miles a day. What does your recovery look like?
Um, well, I got home from my run today, and I did 50 burpees, and so I took a shower and then hopped on. Well, then had a meeting, then hopped on. I don't do any recovery stuff.
I
I mean,
knew you
I
were going
got
to
I got
say
a
that.
tiger tail. I got this tiger tail thing that's pretty sweet. Sometimes I roll on my quads when they're really tired or they're sore, and I have a massage gun. The and
Yeah.
but I can't even tell you the last time I charged that. I've used it at races, and I thought, man, this thing's amazing. I should use this more often. And then I don't. Yeah, I got a foam roller, probably had for a decade. That's still in pretty decent shape. I'm not very good at that stuff. I mean, I like the body weight stuff, and um, I told my wife I won't be able to touch my toes when I bend over by the first of the year. So that's been a new one. I've been working really hard on trying to like stretch that, but I don't do anything. But I used to. I mean, I'm not going to say I never have. I absolutely have gone through the stages of foam rolling, the band, the yoga ball, and spending 30 minutes getting loose enough to go run. And it's just, that those things I think started to take away from my running, right? So I wanted to do things that made me a stronger runner, and those things just took time. When shit, it's going to work out. I mean, it might suck for the first 20 minutes, but it'll work out, right? And
It'll work out.
can you stretch for 20 minutes and bypass that? Yeah, yeah, you can. But I'm not very good at it. Like recovery drinks. Um, yeah, I don't have anything. Um, I got some stuff the Mountain Ops has sent me for free, and I put that in with some creatine, and I have that with a diet 7 Up or sugar free 7 Up. I have that, but I don't. There was a time I was trying to like gain weight, so I bought this mass builder, mass gain stuff, and I was drinking the heck out of that. Felt like I kind of swelled up a little bit, but then I told my wife, "This is kind of expensive, like
Oh yeah.
maybe we could just eat more chicken." And so I did away with that. I'm not very good. It's like I see people like post like what I ate today on my 20-mile run, and I'm like, I told my wife, I said I had 2 eggs and a pot of coffee.
Yeah.
It's been all day. I haven't eaten. I said I'm looking forward to dinner though, and I've done that for years. It's just there's a lot. The bit in my mind, there's a lot of things that take away from the thing I actually enjoy, and that's the running piece and the feeling that it gives me. It's hard, man. It's hard. It sucks.
Oh,
You're only a couple miles from the house, and you're sweating, you're breathing hard, your legs hurt. Everything is telling you to stop. And so it's like you get through that, and you feel good about it. And that's great for me. And the stretching thing, and I do push-ups and burpees and do all that stuff, but that's just to fill a void in time because I got to be active. If I'm not on the road working on something and I'm home and I'm in meetings and talking through the day, I can't just sit here. I mean, it's just like I got 5 minutes. You know how much I can do in 5 minutes? You can get a lot done in 5 minutes. So,
hmm.
but
Now, do you don't go to the gym, do you per se, like an actual like free weight
no,
gym?
nope,
Yeah.
no, I
I
haven't. Yeah,
Yeah,
do you?
you're I do, yes. But
Okay.
you're really creative though. Like I saw you this morning. Is either this morning or yesterday morning. You found a jungle gym, didn't you? Did you not?
Oh yeah, there's one right now. That's where the kid. Yeah, that's where I do all my pull-ups.
Hell yeah, yeah. I saw
So and
you
I
were
can
doing.
I can do both ways. Yeah, and it's about half mile from the house. So if I'm like, oh, I go get my pull-ups in today, I can just run that. I can just jog down there and rip them out and then come home. So
Yeah,
yeah, I really wanted to tell my son we need a bar, but I don't know where we would put it. Then we were looking how much they were, and I'm like, I can't freaking buy a bar when I get this jungle gym, and I just
just
run past it every day.
just call Truett. He'll hook you up.
Yeah, you're right.
Good
Yeah,
lord.
he motivated me, man. I saw that and I was like, I wonder how many pull-ups I can actually do. So I was finishing a 100 miler when he was doing that. So I was back in Indiana working, and this one weekend I was like, well, I did this 100 and I finished. The first thing I do when I got done, I'm sitting in the car and I'm looking. I'm like, okay, oh, he's still going, he's still going. So I'm watching it, and I was like, had kind of this moment like, well, how many pull-ups can I even do? I mean, I don't know, where would I do a pull-up? So I did, I all of a sudden I'm back in the gym there, and they had a bar, and I was trying to do a pull up, and I was like, I'd get to about three or four, and I'm like, this is really, really hard. And then it was like, okay, I got to, if he's doing 8,000, I mean, how can I not even do 10? So then my goal is I want to be able to do 50, just be able to do 50, just rip off 50. Like I can do 50 push ups or 50 clean burpees. And, after that, things kind of get a little harder. You got to work through it. But if I can do 50 pull ups, that'll be great. I'll feel good about that. So, and I'm like 30, I did 30 this morning, and I thought I was going to do better. But I think actually running last night so hard, uh, my shoulders were kind of sore. And so doing pull-ups, I was like, yeah, that's kind of a different, something was working a little bit different, but all good.
That's one of the most impressive feats I've probably ever seen. I mean,
Oh,
to do pull-ups for damn near a day straight, it's just like it's mind-boggling. Because if you're listening to this, anybody out there listening to this, just go find a bar and see how many pull-ups you can do. Probably like not even 10. Like the average American can probably not even do 10 pull-ups. I highly doubt it. Maybe like two, three.
oh yeah. Yeah, you ain't doing 20.
No.
It's no way. It's incredible. Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, it's just, and then the mental fortitude of just battling through that with your hands ripped apart, and it's just like your forearms and that where your arm bends, like that shit's on fire. I was watching some of that when he was doing it a month or two ago, and it's just unbelievable to me. That kid is a freaking monster.
Yeah, yeah, he's tough as nails. Yeah, every time I do them, I think that I'm like 8,000, or to
Good
do it for a whole day.
grief.
So it's like I do that, and I look at I like record my 30, and it's like been a minute and a half or less than 2 minutes. So I'm like, that's nothing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like a blank, compared to 24 hours. It's awesome. It's awesome. But
And then some dude beat his record in like 2 weeks. Did you see that?
yeah, and I'm curious if it was probably somebody that they had been training at the same time Truett was doing his. Had
Had
to.
to. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you don't just wake up and do that, and like you
No.
can't train for 2 months and rip that.
No, and he had a whole crew of people there. It was very similar. There's a lot of people supporting him. So it's not like, I mean, even if you're a total beast, you're not going to call up your local bros and say, hey guys, tomorrow I'm going to go throw down this world record 24 hours. That many people aren't going to show up.
Yeah,
And
right,
it's
right.
all, they had it all blocked off and it was official. So yeah, he had to have been training. I mean, maybe not, but hey, I had to have been. I can't imagine you being fit enough to be able to do that activity for that long. That's like saying you're going to go run 100 miles and you haven't ran 10, you know,
Yeah.
you can get done in 36 hours, but to do it in a day or sub 24, to do that many, I don't know,
No,
that's a lot.
absolutely wild. Um, hey, so you sent me that video the other day of that giant bull.
Yeah.
How long have you been bow hunting?
1 year.
1 year. Is it
Well,
not
this year, this
just
is only, yeah, no, like,
really?
yeah, like 7 or 8 months ago, is when Cam was starting to keep hammering podcasts or the collective. And I was like, oh man, that'd be pretty sweet. And he's like, oh, we want to have you on. And I was like, man, I better start shooting a bow. And I'd wanted to bow hunt because my son had moved home from the army, and so he was here, and he loved bow hunting when he left, when he was there. So it was like that's something he and I could do together. So A buddy's like, hey, you'd be shooting 100 arrows a day, blah, blah, blah. So, of course, me, I'm just doing as much as I can and shooting. But I never had been in on animals or, I have, and I've rifle hunted and I killed a spike bull. I've killed lots of deer, but never bow in hand that close that time of year. There was like different aspects to it, right? During rifle season, it's a different time of year than the archery, and it was longer, and the elk are in different places. It was all different, but I'm in the mountains so much. It was kind of like I know where there's elk,
Yeah,
piece of
yeah,
cake.
that's very true.
But tell you what, closing that gap, getting on them every day, that's different. It's like randomly you go up on a weekend and you run into a herd of elk is different than I'm going to go up and find these elk, regardless of whatever time of day or where it is. And I worked really hard. I was doing 35 mile weekends covering the same ground, trying to pick these elk up. And I get up high at night, listen for them bugle, and they wouldn't bugle. And all my buddies were like, oh, don't be hunting up in the mountains. Get on the coast range. There's a lot more elk. They're vocal. You're going to get in on them better. They're easier to hunt. And I was like, you know what? I've been shooting my bow, and I really want to kill a bull in the mountains. I really want to be on the Keep Hammering Collective and actually be part of the actual, like, the bow part of it, the archery piece of it. I really wanted to do that. And so I tried to prove myself a little bit that I could get this done. And yeah, it was the second to last day of season, 6 miles from the car. There I am. I'd sat down. I've been sitting down for about 45 minutes, and sitting there, and the wind was kind of blowing, and I was tired. I just wanted to sleep, and all of a sudden I thought I heard a cow call, and next thing you know, there's elk all around, and um, I get something behind me, and I look, up behind my shoulder, and all I can see is this rack come up over a log. And so what do? Is I turn around and I pull back, and he's 25 yards, but all I can see is his snout and his horns. There's this log right in his line of vision, and there's rocks covering the rest of his body. So, but he's 25 yards. He's right there, and so I'm pulled back, and I end up counting. I counted 6 cows. I think it was 6 cows, 6 or 7 cows that walked out. I could watch out of the corner of my eye, and he's just sitting there the whole time, staring right at me. Well, I'm pulled back, and so all he can see is my stomach. But if I let down or do something, I'm busted.
Yep.
So I'm sitting there full draw. There's not a shot there. I don't know why I pulled back. It was just excitement. My heart was racing. Wasn't breathing. It was like I was having a full on panic attack. And I was like, I remember at one point I could hear my string hit my coat because I was shaking so bad. And so I'm standing there and I'm sweating. And it had been, I told my son it was like 20, 25 minutes. I don't know, but I ran a long ways, and this felt really long. And so I'm sweating my back, like my shoulder blade, like I got a torn rotator cuff. I'm not pulling very much weight. My shoulder is just on fire. And all of a sudden I hear something like behind me, the way I originally was facing. Me being a novice hunter, I'd sat down and ranged everything right in front of me, not where I had come in. So where I had come down the hill, I never ranged back. So I'm sitting here, I'm turned around behind me, looking at this bull, and I hear something behind my shoulder. So I look over my shoulder, and it was 21 yards to this tree, and here's this great big spike standing there broadside, looking right at me, and I'm full draw, and I'm like, I mean, this is not the way I anticipated this happening, right? And all of a sudden, he does this bark. I don't know if you've heard it. Like, I feel like people have never heard it, and I had, but it's like it was almost like a bugle, but it was just really sharp, and it was like a bark, and it was incredibly loud. And he did that, and I jumped. I mean, I was like, "Jeez," it scared the shit out of me. And all of a sudden, the cows start moving, and then this big bull turns and starts walking. Kind of, he's going to go through this little draw and up this hill, and I let off, and I'm like, okay, whew, finally I get off that thing, and I'm like, okay, now what? And I'm watching, and I kind of had this moment. Okay, am I going to turn around and shoot the spike, or am I going to kill this branch bull? And at that point, I hadn't really seen how big he was, and so all of a sudden, I'm thinking I'm 6 miles from the car. I'm alone. It's like now I realize all the doubts and where we sell ourselves short, because all of a
Mhm.
sudden I was making excuses of why I didn't deserve to kill this bull. Right? It's like I was making up all these reasons. So anyway, so he steps out and I'm like, oh geez, he's huge, and I rip back and I'm holding there and I'm shaking again, and this spike is back there barking the whole time, and he's moving up the hill and he turns broadside. I'm like, okay, I put my 40 pin on him. And I'm holding. I'm like, kind of close my eyes. I collect myself and I kind of get all situated. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And I shot, and he turns. So he was broadside. He kind of turned, quartered a little bit, and kind of went up the hill. And my arrow just goes whoop, like down to the right. And I was like, I wasn't really sure if maybe I hit him low, like maybe I hit him in the leg. I wasn't. I saw the arrow, but then I lost it, right? And in my mind, I completely missed, but I wasn't sure. And he starts hurrying, and they all single file line. They all get gather up, and I'm sitting there, and so I hit the cow call, and he's looking right at me. So I'm looking at him. The spikes call, making all this racket. So I was like, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna give it 45 minutes, an hour. If I hit him, he'll bed down. I'm not gonna push him. This spike's making all this freaking racket. So they were pretty slow, gathering up, but now they're 100 yards up the hill, and they start to walk off. The spike's making this racket. I kind of had one of those moments, and I'm like, this thing's 20 yards from me. I mean, this is a slam dunk. But then I'm like, but if I hit the other bull, I'm not going to be the loser that's got animals wounded all over the mountain. So I was like, okay, I need to stick to the big bull. It's only Saturday, blah blah. So I waited 45 minutes. It got to the point I had to go, shoo, get out of here, because the fucking spike, it wasn't going to leave. And it was like, it ate me up. And he was huge, and great big spike. And so I shoot him off, and I get up there, and I was in a burn, and I could see their tracks really well. And I got to where, and no arrow, no blood. Okay, I'm looking. I get back on their tracks, and I end up following their tracks. I could see where he was walking about 5 feet off of the cows. So there were spikes and cows in single file line, and he would walk off to the side of them the whole time. And I followed him for about 4 miles. Started getting dark, and so I set up my camp. And then about 3 o'clock in the morning, I started hearing bugles rip off, and I was like, "Okay, so it's freezing cold out, and I'm loading up all my stuff and get my pack ready." And it doesn't get light till 7 or something. I mean, I got a long time, and so I start making my way through the mountains, and I had two bugles going, and I kind of got in between them and ended up really close back into the same spot where I was, but I could never get back on them. So that was Sunday. Season was over, and then out of just not finding my arrow, not finding blood, I was like, I could sleep. I wasn't. I've rifle hunted, and I've never had that experience. Right?
Yeah.
It's like you shoot them and it's done. And I knew it would be there'd possibly be an ordeal, but I really thought I'd just find my arrow. And so I went back up there. I took my dad. I called in sick to work, and went back up there. And where I screwed up is then I ranged it. So I hadn't ranged that spot until days later, and so I get over there and hit him like 62 yards. It's like 40 and 60 is very different, right?
Yes.
And it was uphill, so it was like, okay, so I got my dad there. I'm looking, never found my arrow. Kept looking in the dirt. It's like these tracks are his. They're huge. You can follow them for miles. And it's like there was never any blood. And I looked hard. I ended up going back up there 3 different times because I was like, eventually we saw him again. So then we knew, yeah, okay, he's fine. And, nobody else had ever been in there. I never saw another hunter. It was just really, I was so thankful and grateful to be able to get in on elk. I told my wife, I was like, I walked 6 miles from the car and sat down. 45 minutes later, here's this branch bull. I said,
Yeah.
I was like, I had won at that point. It was like, I even told Cam that. Just that experience, just to get to there, I was already done. My goal was to get close enough to an animal to get a shot. Then when I did that, it was like, okay, wait, there's still another part of this, right? And
Mm.
that's the part that's really eating at me. It's like, I knew better. It's like, I totally was like, I wanted to get on. Yeah, I just sold myself short. I mean, and I think we all do that, right? It's like you get to that point, but I know where I messed up is I never followed through. What I should have done was, okay, there they are. They don't know I'm here. I got today and tomorrow game on. I got 40 hours to chase these elk and wait for that big bull to make a mistake. And that's how I should have played it looking back. But I was so anxious that once I got in the moment, I'm, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
I've
shooting.
been there.
Yeah, so it was a tough lesson, now we're deer hunting, and it's similar. My son's got these great big bucks on camera, and I'm just out there freezing my tail off, and I don't even own a camo coat. I'm wearing, I don't have any camo. I got a Matthew switchback that's like 15 years old. I had Wayne at the bow rack go through a couple years ago, and I'm not. I haven't. I see why guys jump full bore into it and spend the amount of money they do because I got a list of things that I think I really need to be successful. so,
Hmm.
but then I go back to I had the opportunity, I had the chance, I just wasn't prepared. So,
Those are the lessons you got to learn, though, man. Because I'm not new to bow hunting, but I'm new to bow hunting elk. I've only lived out here a couple of years,
okay.
and it is one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing I've probably ever done. And you
Hmm.
gotta make those freaking mistakes, man. Because I mean, you can read all the articles, you can watch all the YouTube videos, you can listen to all the podcasts, but until you get in those situations, you never really know how you're gonna act, or you never really know what you're gonna do. And you wouldn't have known that unless you had that unfortunate experience. But
So,
the good thing about that is that you didn't wound them, clean miss,
yep.
and next time you're in that situation, you're gonna capitalize.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, as soon as the snow melts, it's game on. And I don't even own a trail camera. Well, I do now, but it was like, I raised my sons hunting around. They've been successful, and now it's like, okay, I bow hunting. That's a whole new thing, and it's awesome. Yeah, I've enjoyed the heck out of it. And not that I've killed anything. And I told my son, I said, I don't even. Now it's like it could be a little. Originally, I'm like, I want to kill a big buck. Now it's like we're late in the second season. Fork a horn, little porcupine. I'm smoking him. I just want to know that I can kill an animal with my bow because that has been like, I have rifle opportunity. That would have been done opening. Great
Yeah.
big bucks. That's completely different. But to get, you know, 20, 30 yards from a deer, they're little too.
Yeah.
Black-tailed buck is not. It's not a 300-pound animal. They're little, but
I like how you said, just getting in on them that close. That was a win for you, and that was a win for me my first year as well. It's like, because for me, that was the hardest thing was locating them and getting on them. Obviously, killing them's hard, but you can't kill them if you can't find them and get on them. And it's just such a difficult thing. Like if you think you're gonna drive the roads and be like, oh yeah, there's a herd of elk, let's go. No, it doesn't work like that.
no,
That's one of the hardest things. And for me, my first year, that was a successful hunt for me. I'd be like, heck yeah, I had a couple good opportunities. I found them. Some novice green kid out here like finding elk. Heck yeah, like that was a big win for me. So it's funny how those things evolve over time. And good on you, man. That's awesome.
yeah, it's been fun, and uh, now I realized just the other day is after that whole bull experience, I couldn't shoot my bow. It was almost 2 weeks before I could like comfortably pull it back. It hurt it bad, and so that's where the burpees and push-ups since I've been doing all I've been heavy on that stuff since September. And so this last weekend we were deer hunting, and I just had pulled my bow back. I don't know why. I just you know whatever situation, like target shooting is different. Maybe I'm thinking about it too much, but when we're out there, I was like, man, this is really easy. Like, this is ridiculous. So I told my son I need to have it adjusted because I said I'm not pulling very much. I'm shooting a really light arrow. So that's like on that bull. Going back, I know what I did. I told my brother Pete. It was like when I shot my analogy was playing basketball and shooting free throws all the time. So you're shooting free throws, you're shooting free throws, you're super good at it. You don't miss. You're really confident. And all of a sudden, you back up to the 3 point line and you try to shoot just like it's a free throw, and you come up short. Well, that's what your memory. That's your only experience is to shoot that. So when I pulled up, regardless of how far that bull was, I put my 40 pin on because that was my comfort zone. That's where I just my go to. And when I roll it back in my head, I was like, why did I not look? And standing there now, it's like that's clearly not 40 yards, But in the moment, that was my go-to, and I really kicked myself for not trying to shoot 80, 60 yards consistently. I was only 20 to 40, all the time. And I was shooting a lot of arrows, but I never stretched out past that. And I
Yeah.
really should have. Because then I would have known the distance when I pulled up. I would have, oh, I need to get high. I need to rate. There would have been something else, right? I think maybe I'm wrong, but in my mind, I feel like it would have played out differently.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about it is you put the work in, practice, and next year when you get that opportunity, you're going to capitalize, man.
Oh, yeah. Well, I hope so.
I hope so too. Well, listen,
Yep.
Taylor, man, I really appreciate this, brother. I'm glad we got to make this happen. I want to be respectful of your time. Where can people find you before I let you go?
Uh, T Spike on Instagram. And then, yeah, I think it's T Spike 2. I think I had to use that one. And then on Taylor Spike on Facebook, it's the only two I got.
Perfect. And if you guys haven't listened to the Keep Hammering Collective, Taylor was also on there with Cam. And if you haven't listened, you definitely should because that's a really, really good episode. So, man, I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, no, this has been good. I appreciate it. Yeah, and if
Yeah,
you want to do it again or there's something else you want to touch on, just let me know, man.
don't tell me that because I'm going to be hollering at you a couple months.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Stay on the line, man. I'll get you out, okay?
Okay.
All right, brother.